In this episode, we'll be playing Nine Kings, a strategy roguelike auto-battler where you will build a city filled with powerful troops, unique buildings, and incredibly dangerous buffs to defeat the enemy kingdoms. The first question that we always cover in these videos is what stage of development is the game in? And in this case, when it comes to Nine Kings, it's currently available for $15 via Steam. But what exactly is the game? Well, Nine Kings is a unique blend of strategy, auto-battler, roguelike, and card games all rolled into one unique package. Along the way, you'll see yourself carefully selecting and placing cards to optimize your kingdom to be as strong as possible. One of my favorite things about Nine Kings has to be the indie vibes that it just gives off. Everything from its pixel graphics to its fresh take on several genres, all mixed into one, creates an almost cozy atmosphere somehow when you're playing the game. It knows it's not a AAA title too, and it leans into that, which is part of what makes it so special since it has all of these creative blending of games mixed together. An example of this is the fact that it has a progression system where you unlock a few different kings, each of which comes with 9 cards unique to that deck. It also provides each one of those decks with the ability to gain perks as you play with it more and more. For an example, you can increase the maximum level of your keep and gain special cards, or just have more rerolls depending on what it is you want. It almost reminds me of games like Vampire Survivors when it comes to its progression system, as it's both unique and complex enough to keep me excited about what I'm going to unlock next. However, to unlock harder difficulties, you'll have to first beat the previous difficulties with careful strategy and a little bit of luck. Each run will see you starting out with 9 plots for your buildings and troops, as well as a few base cards from your specific king to choose from. You will then play one of these cards in one of the 9 plots to either upgrade it or summon a new thing onto the board. The placement is extremely important though, as you will have some buildings that buff adjacent units and other buildings. This means that you have a very limited amount of space to work with, and every placement can dramatically change the strength of your kingdom. Once you're done playing cards, your units will move forward and begin to attack one of the opposing kings. If you survive enough waves, you will eventually take on one of the kings in a final boss battle. If you're able to take them down, this will unlock the next difficulty and give you the option to either start a fresh run or continue endlessly to see how far you can push your kingdom. This is where the game really starts to have quite a bit of replayability value, at least for the cost of the game. Endless mode can really test just how good your build is and starts to separate players who are just okay from players who have built something that is truly unstoppable. Unfortunately, there currently is no leaderboard system in the game, but it does look like the devs do have plans to add one, as well as some kind of a unique twist on the game in a daily or weekly challenge mode. Though, to be honest, it's still a bit unclear as to what exactly these are going to look like, so take that with a bit of a grain of salt. Alrighty, it's time to move over to the pros and cons section of the video. First up for the pros is that the game is a unique idea with very strong foundations laid down for the player. This means that the core mechanics are all there and everything the game needs to function functions right and is engaging and fun to play with. Of course, the game can have more put into it, but the foundation has clearly been laid, which leaves me high hopes for the future of this game. Next is that it's simple yet refreshing when it comes to its progression systems. No, the progression systems aren't anything crazy and unique here that we've never seen before in other games, but they do feel meaningful. Every time I leveled up a king and unlocked a new perk or unlocked a new difficulty, I felt like I really accomplished something and I was getting a meaningful yet not overpowering amount of power to increase the strength of my cards or my king depending on whichever one I'm playing. The point here is that it's enough to keep me interested without overwhelming me with too many confusing progression mechanics. Lastly for the pros is that each king feels like it has a very unique and interesting playstyle. This means that things like the King of Greed is very focused on having as much money as possible, where say the King of Nature is more focused on having the most HP and healing as possible. Best of all, you can mix in cards from other kings as they will occasionally pop up, which allows you to create unique builds for that specific run. Alrighty, now let's move over to the cons section of the video. First up is that the game just feels like there's only one or two builds that are strong enough to progress through to the end game on the hardest difficulties per king. This means that each king has one or two builds, but if you don't go with one of those two builds, you're probably not going to be able to beat some of the harder difficulties, let alone push into the endless mode. Next is that there's just not a lot of content yet, but it looks like they plan to add quite a bit more. The game just needs more variety in its spells, structures, and troops in order to really start to shine, and I do believe the devs have intentions of doing that. However, at this current point in time, it does feel like there's just a lack of content. Finally, is that the game currently suffers from some balancing issues that need to be addressed. It's hard to put this into a tangible example for you, but one thing I found is that some kings have simply better cards than others. I personally found that the King of Nature's healing ability was incredibly overpowered and made it so it was much easier to deal with some of the harder difficulties. I know there are other builds that are strong for different kings, but that one in particular for me felt way too overpowered. This is kind of true for every king, again going back to that one or two builds are extremely strong, and the reason this matters is because when one or two builds clearly stand out amongst the rest, it destroys the creativity of the player. I think this will get better over time as they have a chance to tweak and figure out what players are doing to balance it out so that more people enjoy it and have more flexibility in their builds, of course. So now it's time for the rating for the game. And when we rate games, we want to get 1 hour of enjoyment out of every $1 that the game costs. So for this game in particular, in Nine Kings, we would want to get 15 hours of enjoyment out of the $15 cost of the game. And after playing this game, we're going to give it 6 out of 10 potatoes, but with a very important caveat here that it has the possibility of becoming a 9 out of 10 game. Again, this goes into a number of different reasons. Nine Kings was an incredibly unique game that perfectly blends auto battlers, roguelites, and card games all into one fun, enjoyable experience. However, where it really starts to struggle is in its depth of play. After about 5 to 6 hours, you will start to have found pretty much every good build for each and every king, and endless mode will start to get a bit less strategic and a bit more luck based, because if you don't get one of those two builds, there's no point in even continuing. For me personally, without more content and something to work towards, I lose interest quickly in games. I think when the devs add in the leaderboard system and a challenge mode along with the additional content, the game will be much more engaging and have more than enough content to warrant the price tag, which is why we feel that Nine Kings is currently probably worth the cost. But once it's released with all of its content, it could be without a doubt worth the cost. Before you guys go, I do want to give you a quick thank you for watching the video. Like it if you liked it, dislike if you didn't, and share if you've got some friends that might be interested. Thank you all so much for watching once again. I'm Game Advisor, and I'll see you in the next one.